I'm going to explain how a positive interrupter can help you work on a lot of different reactive behavior with your dog. What a positive interrupter is it's adding something in order to interrupt the behavior. So I use the word yes as a positive interrupter. The word yes just means the dog's getting food. It doesn't inherently mean that I agree with behavior or that it's a quid pro quo reward for a behavior they just did. It's just this noise equals food. How positive interrupters can be highly effective in decreasing stress and making dogs feel better, therefore helping address reactivity, is food makes dogs feel better. We know this. We know that it lowers their heart rate. We know that it helps their bodies calm down. Now, some people might say, well, food makes my dog excited. That's sort of a whole different separate video. But if I told a client, hey, I want to condition your dog to the word yes, that means they're going to get food. They're not seeing long term. How is this going to help my dog? Also, if I'm giving my dog who's reactive food, am I not therefore rewarding reactive behavior? The reality is I can't reward a dog into a reactive state. Reactivity is stemming from an emotional state, right? And I think Denise Fenzi says something like this. She was like, if I offer you $1 million when you're stressed, is that going to increase your stress? Or could I pay you $1 million to feel fear? You can't just trigger that, right? So we used to have like a misunderstanding about how food correlated to reactivity, but in general, food makes dogs feel better. When dogs feel better, they don't have bad behavior in general, right? So how a positive interrupter can work in your life is if I've brainwashed my dog into thinking when they hear this thing, it means they're going to get food. Anytime they hear that thing, it's going to stop them whatever they're doing, they're going to stop and say, I want that thing. This doesn't happen overnight. This is not like I just, condition my dog to a clicker or the word yes, and immediately when they're reactive that they're going to stop what they're doing and come back to me and get the food. This takes time to develop, essentially. It takes brainwashing. It takes conditioning. So over time, the way that I explain it to clients is this. If I have a kid who is running across the street, there's probably two ways I can get their attention. I can either say, hey, stop what you're doing and I'll take you to Disneyland. And that kid's going to come rushing back to me and feel pretty good about it. Or I can say, hey, stop what you're doing or I'm going to beat your ass. Now my parents handled that the latter, but there are ways to interrupt behavior that don't involve punishment. How this helps with reactivity is typically if your dog is reacting, they already don't feel good. And so when I interrupt this, oh, I'm about to react or I'm in the middle of a reaction and I get them to pivot into something like take this food, it makes them feel better long term. It's not a conscious decision that the dog is making to feel better. It will happen naturally, physically. Their bodies are going to feel better because they're going from stress to something that feels good, stress to something that feels good. And over time, in the moment, it's probably just going to be a really quick, you say yes, they stop what they're doing, they take the food, they go right back to reactivity. That's probably going to happen in the beginning. But what happens over time is you interrupt and you interrupt and you interrupt, and it just becomes more and more frequent. The length of time it takes for them to take the food and go back to the trigger gets longer and longer. And it's just a much more effective way at interrupting behavior. So in the beginning, I might have to use like a punisher, like leave it or whatever, but I'll still reward the dog for stop moving towards or stop reacting to the thing. But over time, I'd rather use a positive interrupter because that's going to get me a better result, a better emotional state, a better feeling from the dog long term.